YouTube, what the crap's going on? Heir of Plague here. Yes, Heir of Plague. Sorry I'm a little behind on a video today, but I'm a little sick, and I had to give my voice a whole day of rest. It's still not entirely well, but I'm trying to keep it from getting too absolutely shot. So thank you for your patience. Now, I did get a chance to get back online with the Dark Elves. I've, again, been on this kick with them, trying to learn more, and I'm going to share a battle with you, but I just wanted to talk about a few ways to understand what certain units are good for when you're picking armies in Total War in general, but more specifically here, Total War Warhammer 2. So, infantry-wise, how do I know what infantry to pick for my army? Well, you need to think about the task that is going to be asked of you in the battle. So when your opponent picks a faction, in this case, my opponent picks the Tomb Kings. And let's do a little sleuthing real quick. If we look through Tomb King's infantry, there should be one thing that they all have in common. Do you all know what it is? Take a look as I scroll through the stats on the Tomb King. The highest armor rating is 50. And if you're not super familiar with the game, that's not real great. So basically, the Tomb Kings offer an entire line of low armor infantry. 50 is probably more like mid armor, lower mid armor. So that's what the Tomb Kings have in common. Now, don't take that to mean that they have nothing that has armor, because that's not true either. They have Ushabti, which have 95 armor. They have Scorpions, which have 95 armor. They have Sphinx, which has 95 armor. One with 100 armor. So they will have some armored units, but if your opponent does pick an infantry line, you can be assured that it's going to be low armor. So when I go to pick my army, so my opponent picks the Tomb Kings after I've picked the Dark Elves, I'm going to be considering that. I don't need heavy armor-piercing infantry, so I'm probably, it doesn't mean you have to, but I'm probably going to write off Harganeth Executioners. The specific purpose of this unit is armor-piercing anti-infantry duty. So this unit isn't going to serve a ton of purpose in the match against Tomb Kings. Could it be used to success sometimes? Yes, but I think it's a risk. It doesn't have a shield, and the Tomb Kings bring a lot of skeleton archers sometimes. Blackguard of Nagaron. Does this unit serve a purpose versus the Tomb Kings? Yes, it can. It can definitely help you against constructs. I don't know why I lost my train of thought there. So this unit can certainly help you against constructs because of its anti-large, armor-piercing, but once again, it's not got a shield. And if you're going to bring units without a shield, you may not want, I mean, you can bring them without the shield, but I'm just saying it puts them at vulnerability to all those arrows, especially with the cost. And anyway, so here's another thought. How about Sisters of Slaughter? They have almost no armor themselves. They do have a small shield. They're poison, which means that they're going to lower the leadership, speed, and melee attack of the units that they're attacking. That's actually really helpful. They have some physical resistance here, which means that about 20% of the damage of anything that doesn't imbue magic is going to be ignored. So that's also good news. So they are low armor, they're somewhat vulnerable, but they have very high melee defense, meaning when they do get into combat, it's not real easy for enemies to land hits on them. And they're going to be making the opponent's melee attack lower to begin with because of the poison. So Sisters of Slaughter are the perfect unit for this Tomb Kings matchup in all but one way. And that is that they are really good against low armor infantry. The only way that they're not great, I say the only way, there's two. One, arrows. So they will resist some because of their shield and their physical resistance, but they're still going to be pretty vulnerable. And two, large constructs. Those will not be things that they're going to like to fight, but they should do well overall because they have very high leadership. So, Sisters of Slaughter. The other one that should do pretty well would be a Black Art Corsair. It's not going to do near as well as a Sister of Slaughter because it doesn't have poison, but decent leadership, pretty solid armor, which means that the Tomb Kings units won't do a ton of damage to it in return, at least not super fast. Its melee defense is fairly low because they don't have a shield. So the Tomb Kings will have a better time attacking it, but they have a bonus versus infantry. This is very handy because it's going to do a little bit of extra damage to all the infantry they come up against. So Black Art Corsairs and Witch Elves would also be good. They can potentially berserk a construct or a lord and they're going to double off as being good against Tomb King's infantry because of this bonus versus infantry that they have. So they've also got Frenzy, which is going to give them extra stats as long as their leadership is up. So these are the units that I was going to focus on in this build, and that's how I picked them. I'm still sticking with Morathi as the Lord, because Morathi has anti-large damage, even on her Dark Pegasus. So I'm going to have her be more mobile this time. We're going to use that anti-large bonus. Now, she's a little bit flimsy in and of herself at only 40 armor and no shield. But remember, it's the debuffs that make her strong. So it's the synergy of the abilities. Look at this one. -9 melee attack, constant, around self, within 40 meters. And then Heartrender and the Dark Sword, -9 melee defense. Now, that's a big deal. And -9 melee attack. So that's a grand total of -18 melee attack to anything she's close to. And then -9 defense. That means that all the units around her become very vulnerable to units that they were already somewhat vulnerable to. So in this matchup against the Tomb Kings, the biggest thing I don't need my opponent to do is pick a bunch of constructs. So let's jump into this battle and see what he has picked. If we take a look at his army over here, you can see that he has brought a lot of infantry. This is good for me because I've brought a bunch of stuff ready to neutralize that infantry. And then he's got his his bowmen over here as well, and these Ushabti with great bow. So he does have some constructs. His Lord is one of them. It's on a Kymrian War Sphinx. And then he's got the 2 Ushabti. So yes, we will have to deal with some constructs. But the fact that he's brought a lot of infantry is going to put me in a potentially good place. The other units I've brought to support this army, I've got 3 units of Dark Shards with shields. Those are going to provide me the ability to kill constructs if needed, and it is needed, or to contend with his range if needed, which it is needed. The other 2 units I've brought are Dark Riders with shields. These Dark Riders are going to be able to fend off lightweight cavalry from the Tomb Kings, which is all they have, and Harpies and other units, and then I've let the Witch Elves work in conjunction with them in the back. The Tomb Kings have 2 Tomb Guards with halberds. Watch this engagement. Sorry, it's speed, leadership, and weapon strength with the poison debuffs. I got that wrong earlier. So immediately Morathi is going to get on the Tomb King. I'm going to hit him with Soul Blight. I'm going to bring in Witch Elves. And you can see my Sisters of Slaughter, despite having been shot up, still perform very well overall. And the Sisters of Slaughter are going to really give trouble. With my excess numbers, I'm able to get through the line. Black Art Corsairs will be very effective against Skeleton Archers when they get into melee. My Witch Elves will now have to serve as a center because they've kind of gotten tied up. He did send his Harpies in, and indeed, my Dark Riders can get in there and interrupt that. On the flank, my Black Art Corsairs got shot up some, and they weren't a perfect match getting shot and trying to fend off Tomb Guards with halberds. So we'll see how that goes. Fortunately, my Sisters of Slaughter are absolutely owning the Nehekara warriors. Morathi is slowly pulling away at the Kymrian War Sphinx. Look at his stats. He only has 16 melee attack, 25 at times, because she has to be in melee. So as soon as she gets in melee, it'll drop it down to 16. I'm using Soul Stealer, and I've used Soul Blight. My crossbows were getting some pot shots, and you can see that the Tomb King's player knows he has to take out the Dark Shards. He used a Sandstorm Vortex to very good effect against one Dark Shard, and now he's attacking my others with his Tomb King. Over here, he sent 1 Tomb Guard into my Sisters of Slaughter. That's great, that's where I want it. My regrouped Black Art Corsairs and Sisters of Slaughter are going to converge on this Tomb Guard and be able to give it some trouble. Now, my last goal here is to be able to contend with these archers. One of my Sisters of Slaughter broke through, and so now I do have his archers pinned down in the back. However, he just got the 3rd tier of the Realm of Souls healing, and with it, a summoned Ushabti. So once again, Dark Riders, not particularly great versus Ushabti, but Ushabti, not particularly great versus Dark Riders, and it becomes a great way for me to keep my Dark Shards free. You can see I'm just doing a bait and switch. Every time he wants the Dark Shards, I give him something that he doesn't want. He has gotten one of them, and he is working hard to do that damage, but it's not been enough. Now my Dark Shards are tearing through one of his Ushabti with Great Bow, and Morathi just continues to harass the Tomb King with Soul Stealer, and also just attacking him with her anti-large bonus, and you can see that she's taking almost no damage in return because of how much she's debuffing the enemies around her. His melee defense is low, his melee attack is low, he's taking a major beating from Morathi. And all the while, my infantry is just over here getting the job done. My Sisters of Slaughter are going to come back this way and help against these Ushabti. And then this Blackheart Corsair has just been slowly winning against the Nehekara Warrior out here on its own. And the Witch Elves managed to catch the Lich Priest and berserk him. So that was a huge benefit for me. And again, back here, every time he goes for my archers, I'm going to substitute it with the Dark Riders. And then I've got these Sisters of Slaughter to follow it up. And he just can't get away from Morathi enough at this point. The target is too big. These Tomb Guards with halberds put up a good fight, but you can see my regrouped units able to come back in and tear him up. He finally routs my Sisters of Slaughter here, who are contending very well. But I've got a Witch Elf unit ready to come in and take that fight on. And you can see they immediately berserk the Tomb Guard. Wherever his War Sphinx gets into my infantry, they break. But he was about to get hit with another bombardment there. With my special ability, I had the Wand ability, where it basically brings in kind of a big Doom Bolt. And he was about to lose his Lord. So at that point, we had effected a defeat on the Tomb Kings. When he brought the infantry-heavy build, it was perfect. It played right into the strengths that this army had. The big risk here was containing the War Sphinx and potential Scorpions. I'm really glad that he brought the Tomb Guard with halberds and not Scorpions. If he would have had a couple of Scorpions, then we would have had some trouble, in the sense that he could have gotten through my line and just chased Dark Shards with his War Sphinx and the Scorpions. Morathi can't contend with all of those at once. She can only contend with one. Yes, I had the Dark Riders. They can help delay. They can certainly help, but that would have also given his bows and his Ushabti with Great Bow time to sit back and just fire at me and do their damage. So you can see that this unit of Blackheart Corsairs did very well. We had a lot of kills on a couple of my sisters. This is the one that took all the missile fire. And even with all that missile fire, managing to pick off 44 kills, the Witch Elves picked up a chevron for killing that Lich Priest. And on top of it, another 90 some odd kills. The Dark Shards did not end up doing any damage, but they forced an engagement that my opponent didn't really want. He had to throw his Harpies in. He had to bring his Tomb King through my lines and put it in a more vulnerable location. And they forced him to use his Sandstorm magic on them. Like, so in this case, I didn't need the Dark Shards a whole big bunch because of the constructs that he had. All I had to do really was kill infantry, and my infantry line is perfectly capable of that at this point. But Morathi was just the eternal pest here. He couldn't do anything about her. He did not have the right units to contend with Morathi. Now, I think maybe a Tomb Prince on a skeletal steed could have done a lot in this battle, in the sense that he could have been the anti-large against Morathi to come in and try and keep her out of the fight. So if we go look at that, you know, the Tomb Kings in that particular matchup would have had to try and consider the fact that, hey, Dark Elves can bring all of this anti-infantry. I might want to load up on constructs. Dark Elves can potentially fight against those too with Dark Shards, and they also have Cold One Knights and Charybdis and other units like a dragon that can be pretty tough to contend with. But I think that those construct units would probably be the better choice against the Dark Elves for the Tomb Kings. You do need some infantry. You just don't want to feed pretty high cost infantry into that grinder. Just bringing cheap infantry and combining them with constructs would probably be the most effective solution. So for instance, if you had a few skeleton warriors and a couple with spears, now maybe I back those guys up with a pretty fair number of constructs to give, you know, those unarmored units some real trouble here, because they're going to have this anti-infantry Ushabti to back it up. A couple of Scorpions, because these guys can dig through lines and also cause damage to infantry. And you know, if you're going to bring a Tomb King, do you really need a Kimrian War Sphinx, or should you let the Ushabti and the Scorpions help you do that work, and maybe focus on a Lord that is more capable for what it is you're looking for? You know, are you going to face potential ranged units from the Dark Elves? Sure. So you have a couple of considerations. Do you want to think about bringing Ketep, for instance? Could you put him on his Casket of Souls? I don't know all the different abilities that we would want to contend with, but let's just say that like physical resistance would be good. A direct damage spell never goes wrong. So do you do something like this? Yeah, you can do something like that. Now I've got him, but he needs a little protection. Maybe a Tomb Prince each on Skeletal Steed. They could help protect him from anything that wants to land on him. You can determine whether or not you need all of these abilities down here. You can probably take them off to make things cheaper because they do have a ton of extra costs. And see, all you really need is that anti-large. See that? I can get a Tomb Prince on a Skeletal Steed. You may want one because, you know, that it grants that physical resistance. It won't double. But see, something like that now I can protect Ketep. He can rain down death from range. I've got a bunch of constructs to make it difficult for their infantry. The big risk in this army is that I have to protect Ketep. May very well have to from a dragon. But, you know, you do have some anti-large to help do it with. And you've got Ketep here who can rain down on enemy infantry and archers from long range. And you've still got a little bit of cash left to determine what you want to do with it. Am I saying this is the best army? I don't know. I'm just giving you an example of this army would have given me considerably more fits. Because if Morathi lands to kill Ketep, these two get on her case real fast. And even though she's good at debuffing, the two of these guys would stack up against her pretty heavy. If Malekith came on a dragon, I don't know if these guys would straight up beat him, but they'd certainly help. And you might be able to bring in some spearmen or something else. Your front line would last longer than you think because of the healing and the fact that you've got 3 Ushabti to back them up. So even if there's Black Art Corsairs or Sisters of Slaughter, you're going to get some work done with these Ushabti combined with the skeletons. But again, hopefully all this is helpful to just kind of see you can't always counterpick your opponent. You have to think of a scenario, you have to go with the scenario, and then just do your best with it. That's how it works. Hope this was helpful. HeirofCarthage signing out. I'll be back with some more content soon. If you want to see it, make sure to subscribe. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. Helps me out a ton, and I will see you there.